Okay, hi guys. Welcome to the Mind, Body, Spirit Summit. Today I am so excited to have Dr. Perry Nickelston with us.
Hey guys.
I can't even believe he said yes to this. I had to stalk him on Instagram to get him on here. So I'm very excited.
It didn't take much stalking either, you know.
I
I
know.
love doing
It
these
took
things.
one try, but I'm very excited
Me
because
too.
as you'll see, I've been following Dr. Perry for years, and I seriously believe in another life, if I was a male and more in like the sports chiro world, I basically would be you. So
I come with a lot of baggage, though, you know.
it's okay. It's all good.
Thank you. That's really kind. Yeah, I'll have to remember that one. That made me
Totally.
laugh. That's
Totally.
good.
Okay, so a little background on Dr. Perry here for you guys who don't know him. He's owner of Stop Chasing Pain. Definitely check out his stuff. We'll reference how to get in touch with you at the end, which is a sports medicine rehabilitation center in Ramsey, New Jersey. He's a chiropractic physician with a primary focus on performance enhancement, corrective exercise, and movement assessment. He's an expert in myofascial, orthopedic, medical and trigger point soft tissue therapy combined with deep tissue laser treatment. He's a member of the board of directors and medical staff advisor for the American Institute for Medical Laser Application and a functional movement screen instructor, among many other things. I saw this bio from Luis and I was like, and that's probably a tenth of it. But we'll talk about more.
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, you're continuously learning, right?
Totally.
Every year you should be getting better. And, I usually don't add a lot of stuff to my bio anyway. I mean, I
Right.
think you can really get a good sense of who someone is when you listen to them and you talk to them. And, I learned something many, many years ago that just because you have a lot of initials after your name and bend to things, that doesn't translate and correlate over.
Right.
That that can help you make a difference in another person's life with what you do. That's something that is a gift in and of itself, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome.
So that all sounded pretty good.
Yeah. Totally. Well, I'd love for the listeners to hear a little bit about your background story, like how you got into the health and wellness profession initially, and then, because I know how chiropractic school is and what they teach you,
Yeah.
what
Those really
catapulted
is.
you down, as you would say, the crazy shit path of what you're doing
Yeah.
now.
Right. Well, I think like many people who end up getting into any profession really, but definitely with the healthcare one, something happened to you personally in your own life where you were helped. And you typically gravitate towards the career path, whether it be a chiropractor or a physical therapist or a medical doctor, because that particular branch of it helped you, right? So I became a chiropractor. I've been one for, I graduated in 1997, so 21 years ago, because I was been in fitness for most of my life since I was 13, and I'm 51 now. And I hurt myself like many people do, exercising and working out. And but I also did like many people where I just said maybe it'll go away, and it did a couple times. But eventually the body said, well, this time I'm not, and I'm here to teach you a big lesson.
Yep.
And I went to a chiropractor, and the chiropractor really helped me. But I didn't think about going into one at the time because I really wasn't at a point in my life, I think, where I was ready to grasp that potential. It was only years later that I was not happy with what I'm doing, and I said, there's got to be more to life than this, because I really wanted to help people. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to leave my current career because I went to school to study law, actually, believe it or not. And then it went a completely different tangent for me. Then I went back into chiropractic school, but the funny thing happened when I was there. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be either. Like, I've been on a quest, I think, for most of my healthcare career of not just studying what stuff is, because that's really what they teach you, right? This is what your diagnosis is, this is what these muscles do, this is what this system does, that sort of stuff. But they really weren't focusing on the why. So I'm like, okay, well, this is what it is, but why the hell did you get it in the first place?
Yep.
And even interventions are what? Like, okay, you have this is what I'm going to give you. But then I'm also asking, well, why did the body decide to do this to me at this time and in this way?
Right.
And that led me from just the chiropractic, which I still do some of, but I branched out and really went outside of the traditional approach that they teach you in school and even in research in a way, because that stuff is good, but you're like, you're stuck right here.
Yeah.
And if you go outside that, especially when that world of academia or research, man, I mean, they just don't like it.
Right.
And but you said before about crazy shit path. Outside this one, that's the crazy shit path. This is the fringe kind of stuff. But that's where you got to go. That's where you need to go in order to find and discover new things. And it's perfect for my personality, right? I don't like conformity. I don't like following the crowd at all. Like I jokingly say, if you'd say everybody has to go left, I'm like, why? I'm going to go right.
Right.
First of all, just because you told me I can't. And then because you may never know what you might discover on that, right? Because the typical this way, you just see through a certain lens. Mm-hmm. And you look back in the history of everything that was really discovered in life that was completely transformational by these amazing, brilliant people over the centuries. Most of them were discovered completely by accident, and they had no clue. It was just they were down this crazy shit path, and then they just set stuff aside, and then it came to them. It manifested. So that journey led me to get into many different types of disciplines, studying different systems of the body. So, for instance, with chiropractic, you're looking at your skeletal system, and they start to look at your nervous system. But then I went deeper. I started to look at the brain and neuroscience. Then I began to look at human movement, because that's the underlying key of why things can go wrong with people. But then I'm like, you know what? There's all these other systems that they just breeze over in school, like your organ system, your cardiovascular system, your lymphatic system. And the sad thing about medicine today is that they break things so far down into minutia and specialties and parts that this cardiovascular specialist doesn't communicate with the gastrointestinal specialist or the heart specialist. So I just do this system. And I'm like, well, hello, this system has to work with all the other systems. And they say, well, you got to go see this guy. And then you're all over the place. And the funny thing about the human body is the body doesn't know anything about these names you give it. Like, well, you've got a problem with your large intestine, and your body doesn't know what a large intestine is. It just knows that something's not right there. And then when something's not right there, it just pulls from every other place to try to make it right. Yeah. Or so you don't suffer as much. So my goal, and it's almost a fight in a way, that I see medicine fast tracking the other way. Like it's so isolated and so microscopic on research and evidence, and you got to show me this, otherwise it doesn't exist. And I think that honestly, that's one of the reasons why we as human being species are getting sicker, because we're losing sight of the fact that, you know, it's a complete ecosystem, that mind-body connection. You can't separate the two. They both feed back and forth off of each other. And if you think about it, we have more stuff available to us than ever before to make our life easier and more simple, except for the mental barrage nonstop of things coming at you in your mind, and your body is just like, I can't take it. I can't do it, right? And then these pain signals that you have, I mean, why does your body send you pain? I was trying to find that answer, and I came up with a definition that just stuck. And pain, to me, I don't care what type it is pain is a request for change. Yeah. And if you think about that, it's a request from what? Well, you, from your body. And it's saying you got to change something that you're doing or something that you're not doing. And that comes down to lifestyles, behaviors, habits, choices, right? Not you need to take medicine A compared to medicine B.
Yeah.
It's all that. So I know I gave a long answer on there, but it's a long journey, you might say. And so I've gone through many different ups and downs, and I was very close at one point to leaving the profession because I was so frustrated. And then someone said to me that, like, well, you ever thought that maybe you should be in it because your job is to try to help other people see what you're seeing.
Right.
Like, don't tap out yet.
Right.
Don't give up yet, because
Totally.
there's got to be a dog in the fight somewhere.
Right.
And I'm like, well, you know what? I mean, that makes complete sense. So
Yeah.
then that's why I just started to go at it. But bring what we were talking about before, your own uniqueness, your own personality, your own way of looking at things. And then I think that's what makes things very different in the world is take information, but make it your own.
Yep. Yep.
Right? Because you may just find a way that's better
Right.
than what was out there before. And you're never going to find something, honestly, you're never going to find anything better unless you go down the crazy shit path. I'm going to tell you right now, because otherwise you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over. And if you want something to be different, you got to do different.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Well, and like you were saying, even in how the medical model is so specialized and segmented and everything's separate, even, you would think the field of chiropractic would be a very holistic, integrative model. But in my experience, most of the schools are doing the exact same thing. It's like, you are the musculoskeletal system. That's it. Don't go outside there. Because that's all the research shows that we can do. Which just doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, well, a lot of it's just by fear. A lot of it's like fear. Oh, you can't go there. That's not your specialty. It's like, really? I'm a human being. I mean, I can look at anything I want to look at. And first of all, it's my body. Who are you to tell me no?
Right.
Right? I think we're getting better overall. And there's no absolutes, right? I don't want anybody to think that I'm not saying that you have some medical physicians that are really enlightened and being able to look at things. No absolutes in life. If somebody tells you something's always the right way, you should just turn around and walk the other way.
Right.
But I also mix different views and approaches where I do Western medicine approaches, but I also do Eastern medicine approaches. So I mix a lot of my experience through personal experience first. I never do anything to anyone or teach anything unless it's helped me or I understand it. Yeah. And I've had many years of background in martial arts and taking what they call internal martial arts and looking at energy systems of the body and acupuncture, acupressure, more of the what you call holistic with a W-H-O-L-E, holistic view of things. And if you can look at the body that way, it's a really beautiful way to bring in that mind body together, because the only person who loses when you don't do that is the patient or the client that you're working with, right? And then each one knows their role, right? But there's a difference. You have to delineate infectious disease care and traumatic care from the long-term health of the body, or what they call the holistic one, right? I mean, there's no better place you'd want to go if you have an infectious disease or you have a trauma to than Western medicine, right? Sure. Give me something so you can kill the polio, and give me something so you can stop the bleeding that I got a gash. Right. Done. Right? But the other one, the autoimmune, the stuff that creeps up slow, that we're just getting killed with, like left and right, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, irritable bowel syndrome, leaky gut, you name it, right? All those things. What's happened is that we're taking a model of medicine that is used to doing infectious disease stuff. Show me the bad guy. Let me get the weapon to kill the bad guy. But the problem is the autoimmune lifestyle, systemic one, there is no one bad guy. It's a lot of other things, and you can't attack that problem the same way. And some people say it's very pessimistic, and I'm like, well, honestly, it's probably more realistic than anything. That I doubt you're going to get some secret sauce, creamy filling, red pill, blue pill thing that's going to take away your Parkinson's. I'm sorry to say that and realistically, ain't going to happen because there's so many factors that go into that. And that's something that from the world when you look at epigenetics. Epigenetics, for those that are not familiar with it, looks at you've got a genetic predisposition for something in your life, but it's actually very small how much that contributes to whether you're going to get something. It's like 4% max. So just because you have a predisposition for something doesn't mean you're destined to get it. But the other environmental factors, right? The environmental factors, that's one, how you feel about yourself, for goodness sakes, because how you think changes your biology. It's the relationships that you're in. Am I in a toxic environment where I'm stressed all the time, or do I have some loving support from the outside, and do I even love myself first? Because if you don't love yourself, you're not going to get well with anything. Then you have my work environment. Do I eat crappy? Do I eat well? Now, I'm not saying if you do all those things perfectly that you're not going to get something, because that's just life. I mean, life is hard. Life kicks your ass, and sometimes there's no rhyme or reason for it. But I will tell you that I like my odds a lot better if I do those other things, okay? So there's an old saying in epigenetics that says genetics loads up the gun, environment pulls the trigger. So it's something waiting to be kicked off, and that's the stuff why these things that people have take years and years to manifest. It usually takes over 10 years at least for your body to start to break down enough where you notice chronic autoimmune diseases. So you have to go back into someone's life history because that stuff is the catalyst for what made it come to be. And my favorite saying ever is this, is that you cannot get well in the same environment you became ill within. You cannot get well in the same environment that you became ill within. Your physical environment as well as your mental environment. And the dirty little secret is the external environment you perceive, but your own individual human being brain of your life experiences is what alters the perception of what the environment is sending you. You follow? So that's why two people can be in the same situation. I usually say, like, maybe you're listening to a joke and I'm laughing hysterically and you are completely offended. It's the same words, but it's your perception of the words, because words matter. Words change what you feel and what you sense and what you experience. And that's a whole nother side of medicine in and of itself.
Vibration.
Right, it's the energy, right? I mean, the body gravitates and resonates towards that energy. Some people call it the law of attraction, but I looked deeper. I started to study quantum physics. And if you really want to blow your brain up, you look at quantum physics, because that's talking about looking at matter that's not really there, right? But when you go deeper into that, you understand that everything is about energy, because if you don't have energy, you're dead. But there's different scales of energy. And what I'm finding in medicine is that people are so used to feeling bad, they don't know what good feels like anymore. And your body has a sliding scale of energy. Up here is happiness, joy, love. I mean, I can't wake up. I can wait to wake up and embrace the day. And damn, I feel good. And there's a sliding scale down here where you're dead. Right? But it's where this spectrum goes slow. So when you get to the middle one, then your body actually adapts to the suffering. So its job is to adapt to its environment, because if it doesn't adapt to its environment, I mean, it would be miserable at that point. So your new normal is abnormal, what I call embracing the suck. Like, it really sucks, but I'm going to make the best of it.
That's
so
how
if
it
you
is.
get if you give somebody a taste of the good again, then they're like, holy cow, I like that. I would like more. That's one of the reasons why you have this big, huge epidemic of recreational drugs and prescription opiate medication. That's a gateway to that, because that gives me this, that gives me that, and the body says, dude, I like feeling good. I want to seek pleasure. I want to move away from pain. So my mission has been, how can I give that to you? How can not give it to you? How can we restore it? Because it's there. It's always there. It never stops wanting to be here. How can I get you there without a lot of other junk in between? And that's been my mission, right? And I think I'm doing pretty well with getting answers on it.
Totally. I mean, Dr. Perry, I'm assuming, because a lot of what you're saying sounds like Dr. Bruce Lipton's work.
Yeah, sure.
I'm assuming you love his stuff. Yeah. I mean, I've often thought the more techniques and stuff I learn and people I speak with, I feel, a lot of technique people can get into like the war of this is the best technique, this fixes everything, this is the answer, whatever. And I feel like I almost don't even know that it matters, because at the end of the day, if everything's a vibration, you're helping raise people's vibration and get them into a healing frequency no matter what technique you're doing, as long as you resonate with it and love it.
Right. I completely agree. Right. And here's the dirty little secret. Everything works for somebody. Right. And everything has an impact on the body. And a friend of mine in the strength and conditioning world, I mean, he was talking more about like a training program, but I think it resonates with everything in life, that everything works for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the body begins to adapt to it. That's what it does. Right? So, first of all, if anybody ever says this technique is better than that technique, you need to just run the other way, quick, fast, and in a hurry. Because here's the best technique is the one that works for the person that's standing in front of you.
It's almost like religion, in a way.
Well, really, oh my God. I mean, all you got to do is just go near any of these things anymore. People are so polarized and almost they are angrily defensive of their thing. Yes. And if you can't justify, which I hate that word, can you justify why you did this?
Right.
Said no, I don't have to. I don't have to justify anything to you at all. And then I jokingly say that, dude, I will practice voodoo. I'll just take some bones, I'll throw them on the floor, I'll run and jump up and chant in a circle just wearing a loincloth if it makes you feel better.
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
And then I have these knuckleheads that say, well, isn't it just a placebo, nocebo effect? Which my answer is, I hope so.
Yeah, great. Who cares?
Because if you think you feel better, you feel better. And what's wrong with that?
Right.
Here's the thing, is that assuming that you do your clinical examination and evaluation in the confines of medicine to make sure that you don't have cancer, you don't have something that's really serious that you need to take a look at. If that's been ruled out, then I can do whatever in the hell I want to do, whether you like it or not, if it's going to make me feel better. Because there's something that Neil deGrasse Tyson said once, and he's the really cool astronomer, right? That he said the universe is under no obligation to make sense to you.
Right.
And I took that line, I said, dude, that's freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
So all I did was I said this, because your body is its own universe. It's probably the most complicated thing in the universe that you can think of, right? We're not even anywhere close to understanding it. And I now say the human body is under no obligation to make sense to you whatsoever. And just because I can't explain it to you doesn't mean it ain't so.
Totally.
So it's a line that I do everywhere. And then there's times where people say, why did this work? And I'm just going to say, honestly, I don't know why.
Right. I
really don't know why at all. And it does come down, the more I look at it, that got me looking more into energy. And I even hate to say the word energy medicine, because then people think you're talking about all these frou-frou-y things, right? But when you look at physics and you look at matter and you look at some of the most brilliant people ever in the history of the world, from Nikola Tesla and Einstein and all these guys, they'll tell you that if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, you have to look at energy, frequency, vibration, oscillation, period.
Yep.
And that's what we're trying to do in relationship to approach to the human body, physically, but also mentally. Because you know that mental energy, right? You ever get somebody who's an absolute negative, life-sucking bloodsucker? Right? That you stand within 2 feet of them and you're like, God, I feel awful, man.
Right.
That then you can get next to somebody who's just oozes love and confidence and optimism and possibility, and your body says, I want more of that guy.
Yep.
But unfortunately, what happens is that you have people that go back. I'm trying to treat them in my office and help them, but they go back to a toxic environment, right? And I've got some people who go back and they have family members or spouse members say, why are you going to go to this stuff? I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, that's not going to do anything, blah, 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 right? And then that's all of a sudden, boom, start sitting in there like that and manifest it. And you're around that toxic stuff so much, you don't even know you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But everybody on the outside notices it.
Yep.
I see it all the time in relationships where I've got like maybe a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a husband or a wife. You're in this and you see how they communicate with each other, and then they become numb to
Yep.
what the other person is doing. And then you're standing on the outside going, "Holy cow, did that just like happen?" And they're
Right.
going, "What just happened?" Right?
Right.
Just get used to that nonstop barrage
Yep.
that's going. And sometimes with making a change in pain, it's hard. It's
Yep.
difficult. It's making a life-altering choice
Yep.
and step to say, I've had enough, man. Enough is enough. I'm leaving.
Yep.
But unfortunately, many people never get to that point.
Yes, totally. Well, I love the work of, if you know Deb Shapiro, she wrote a great book called Your Body Speaks Your Mind, right? And I think this is what like kids should learn in school, that your body, the language your body uses to communicate with you is a symptom, right? So pain, whatever, tummy aches, headaches, your body's trying to tell you something. And I've had to have that conversation with some patients in the past of like, look, I don't know how much better you can get until you change your situation at work or with your relationship or whatever. And that's fine. And we can like meet you there and keep putting the fire out. But you can only get so far when you're living in a toxic world.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So more and more I get to stuff. I see the role of emotion and chronic pain.
Yep.
Right, mostly, because that's what makes us unique as human beings. That's why you're not a tree, right? I mean, it's the emotions will play a role in your pain, in your depression, in your happiness. It goes both ways, but emotion stands for energy and motion, right? And to not address that, I've seen some crazy stuff in my day, and honestly, earlier in my career, I really wasn't ready to embrace that part.
Yep.
Like I was looking at it like a lot of people look at it, like,
right.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, this bone's moved from here to there.
Yeah.
That's what, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, if you put bone A back to point B and you get better, well, then props up.
Right.
But if you get this chronic stuff that's really taking us down right now, then that's the time where I need to look at all the other stuff. And the energy work, for the emotion work, is pretty big. Like I do a lot more work with very difficult chronic autoimmune diseases that people come to see me for, of all different types. I don't really care what name you give it because they all start from the same place, which is inflammation. The name is irrelevant. And every single one of those guys, every single one of those things has got an emotional component to it, but without question.
Now, how in your practice do you address that emotional component?
Well, if it's a step-by-step process, honestly, because most people, don't even know it's a part of their problem, and it's something that many of them are not ready for.
Yep.
Right. But you learn to spot it over time based on one, just being what I call PTC, present time consciousness, where them actually be in the room with somebody and not have 5 minutes that you're under a gun to work with the patient with. So my assessments are always an hour, and I look at the history a ton. Because when you get this thing of all your systems, right? Like you've got all these things, and then most people in musculoskeletal pain, everybody goes to past accidents, and then they go to like what's your primary complaint, and they don't even look at the other stuff. Right? All those things give me a big picture of what's going on. And then a lot of it is, one, I explain to them my hierarchy system of looking at the body, and I show that in my work, your musculoskeletal system, your point of pain is the very bottom of the cause, right? If it's non-traumatic, okay? And then at the top, that's emotion, right? And I usually preface it to say that's how your body perceives the world, the sensory input coming into it, because your body makes your brain and your body makes the decisions of what it wants to do based on sensory input, right? And then you have the other systems in between. So right then and there, a lot of them just kind of see that this dude's looking at stuff very different right from the get-go. But I can also tell based on my evaluation, the body shows physical signs of emotional stress and emotional trauma based on how many systems are actually affected. I can see it in the eyes a lot because I can see where you want to look when you talk, or where you look when I go near an area that's threatening for you.
Right.
And very often it's not where it hurts.
Right.
And I can just see physical signs of emotional stuff. And a lot of it is deep. I mean, people that will not share stuff with you from past traumas of mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, stuff like that, that they don't, what the hell does this have to do with my sciatica?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That kind of stuff. And so if they're not knowing that you were referred by somebody that says, he did this to me, you can't go there right away.
Sure.
It's too threatening.
Right.
They'll shut down. All right. And then a lot of it is based on my palpation of certain parts of the body. Mm-hmm. So there's areas that really become very inflamed, hardened, dense. It becomes much more, much less resilient. So it's just like tightening up, hardening down. But the biggest place you get it is kind of in the center part of your body, between your belly button and the bottom of your sternum. Mm-hmm. That's where everything goes, man. This is where that's the center of it right there. So very often if I come into that region and I touch there, it should be soft and, no problem. Right. But if I touch there and it's like I'm touching cement and I put pressure in there, a lot of people, it's absolutely agonizingly excruciating if it's a problem. And it's not supposed to be. Right. That right then and there tells me there's a lot of emotional baggage here. And the metaphor is, you keep pushing everything down. Right? I can't show emotion. I can't show pain. I can't show discomfort. A lot of that is based if you're a guy or based on the environment that you were raised in, or if that shows weakness. And then it keeps in your gut. Mm-hmm. That thing that they say, remember, you just feel like this is wrong in your gut, that gut feeling. Yep. That's where it goes. But it's also from a primal perspective. So when the body is under threat and something's coming at you, your natural reflex is to curl into a ball, right? Yep. Like I forget the animals, a possum or something, like that, right? Yep. And then you curl around that central point, and that's where it stays because you're less vulnerable that way. Mm-hmm. And so when you stand up tall and you pull your shoulders back and you say to the world, I am hashtag lean, mean, confident, hashtag beast mode badass, like I'm taking you on. Right. That is a sense of, oof, man, people might see me for who I really am, kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, you curl in like most people live. The head comes forward, the shoulders round in, the hips flex up, and then you like this. And then constant, nonstop. So even your posture tells me what your emotional state is. Totally. If that makes sense.
Totally. Do you give your patients like things they can do to help their emotional state?
I do, but honestly, sorry, I got to move around. I took a charge before, and then the charger adapter was missing a piece. So, if everybody watching, you're gonna get a tour of my home in New Jersey,
included with a tour.
Yeah, there you go. I won't even charge you extra. I can, but a lot of times that stuff doesn't even let go unless I can release the tension that's in that central region. Yeah. A lot of it is just knowing it's an issue, right? Sure. I mean, part of being able to get over pain is knowledge. Yeah. Because then you can say, okay, well, now I don't feel so lost. Right. But that can be a double-edged sword too. Because nowadays you go on Google and you're like, okay, I got sciatic pain. And the next thing you know, you're on some website and you got some exotic African disease. Right. And you're like, what the heck happened here? Totally. Right? So, pardon me, I'm going to find my outlet here. And you got to be careful with that.
Right.
But many things with the emotion is first knowing that it's something that's even on the radar.
Mm-hmm.
Because medicine won't look at it, unfortunately. And if they do, they're going to send you to the medical specialist person, right?
Yep.
Who's the psychiatrist, psychologist, stuff like that.
Yep.
And a lot of times that takes a long time to get you where you need to be. Because first of all, you got to be open to it as a possibility. And even then, sadly, they fall back on the easiest way to get you to feel better. I'm going to drug you up.
Totally.
And I'm not saying that's not right, because I had to go on antidepressants for me at one point in life. So if you can take advantage of some of the gifts that medicine gives to you to help you get to the next stage, it's okay.
Sure.
It's nothing wrong. It's a tool, but you should be able to get to a point where you can hopefully sustain without it or not need as much. So it's based on each individual.
Yep.
But a lot of it is with the emotional part is one, the self-discovery. Two, mindfulness. Like, just put yourself in a state of silence for a while. Some people call it meditation, but even then they go, what? Right? But it's really hard to do, because 5 minutes feels like 5 hours. Mm-hmm. And what happens is your brain thinks about everything else. And a lot of times when you're highly emotional, you don't like silence. Yeah. Because then it forces you to think about stuff, and things can come out that you don't want to face yet. So I always say mindfulness, just have a few minutes where you're around nothing. You put the phone down. That in and of itself is its own form of emotional chaos, and dopamine hit from the phone is like worse than crack, and that you can't function without it. Not to mention the energy waves coming from the phone itself. Sure. And then breathing, right? So breathing in and of itself, if you go back through all of the teachings of some of the great healers in yoga, in martial arts, and Chinese medicine, and even some early Western medicine, they talk about the power of breath. Yeah. How learning to breathe from your diaphragm, right, get a lot of efficient oxygen flow to your body, because the more oxygen you have in your body, well, then the healthier everything's going to be, particularly brain, because your brain needs 20% of the oxygen in your body, and it uses the most of the energy of any place in your body. And most people have a very poor oxygen supply in their whole body because they don't breathe efficiently. And then the brain pays the price, and then the brain gets the inflammation. And when the brain gets inflamed, everything in the body gets affected. So you start to get tired, fatigued, lethargic, forgetful, emotions change, you get mood swings, stuff like that. And eventually you default back on highly charged emotional reactions, which is more of the stress brain in the back. That's that fight or flight. I'm always on edge. I'm always tense. You're kind of an asshole kind of thing. Sorry, but you're a jerk. Right. And your first response is usually knee-jerk anger, right? Yep. Because the front part of the brain is the unique human brain. This is stuff where you can logically think before you open your mouth, right, and put stuff together. But this takes a lot of energy to run, man, like a ton. And if you don't have enough oxygen and you don't have enough energy, well, then the brain says, okay, man, that's too much work for me. Sorry. Right. I got a lot of other stuff I got to take care of. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to default back to this guy that sits in the back of the head. That's the one that's the fight, flight, freeze, freak out, the stress response, like this, right? And I don't know if you checked around lately in the world, but people a little bit tad on edge, right? Like polarized more than ever. And you put something on Facebook, or social media is even worse, because then they can be in the background and not have to confront anybody. You put something on there, and the next thing you know, you got absolute viciousness. And you're like, why the hell is that happening? Right. I honestly think it's a physiological reason and reaction to environmental toxins, full body systemic chronic inflammation, where those emotional reactions are the body crying out saying, dude, I've got a lot of inflammation going on in through here. And because that's not what you're supposed to be.
Right. Right.
You're not.
Totally.
Right. And then my mission is to try to educate people on that one, maybe to try to be a little bit more understanding when somebody's not so nice to you, which ain't easy.
Right.
Right. But here's the rub that I learned a long time ago. I've gone through a lot of ups and downs, and I went through my own chronic illness and autoimmune disease and stuff like that. And through my work, and that's kind of what I'm sharing with people because I was able to help myself. But when I started to do breathing and I started to do mindfulness means actually paying attention to the moment you're in, not somebody else's moment via your freaking phone or what happened to you yesterday or worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow. When I started to get upset with how I chose, that's the key word, how I chose to react to something. If somebody, for instance, puts a hateful comment on my stuff, and I mean that happens, man. I tell anybody, if you're going to try to be great at something, people are going to come at you hard.
Yep.
That's a price to pay for trying to make a change in the world, and you're just going to have to get used to it. In the beginning, I used to get really upset, and I used to go back and this, and then the whole day sucked after that.
Yeah.
Now I can feel my heart rate goes up. I start to get a little watery in my eyes. I almost feel like I'm having an allergic reaction to something, which is kind of what it is, stress response. And I'm like, that's not good, man. Most people don't have the awareness to know that that's what happens to them all the time. And then so I choose and I breathe, I find my center, and I say to myself, I said, this poor dude has got inflammation. They don't even know it, right? It's like not their fault.
Right.
So, and energy attracts energy. So I don't put my energy into that because it begins to grow.
Yep.
So I take it the other way. And then my whole health, everything began to change from that way. Right. So it's a really tough balance because I use the word choice a lot, and people are like, right. I mean, yes, it's a choice. However, a lot of your choices are beholden to your physiology.
Yep. Right.
So if you're in a state of chronic inflammation and hormone imbalance from the stress response, and you don't even have physical pain yet, but you're just kind of in the process of that. You're a seething hot mess and you don't know it.
Right.
So if I help to improve your inflammation through giving you a little bit more physical movement, helping you with mindfulness, giving you some breathing, then what happens is the body starts to change, and then you can start to make better choices where it almost becomes innately more clear to you.
Yeah. That's
actually easier to do that as opposed to the other way to say, well, make better choices. Right. What the hell does that mean? Right. Or people know that they're supposed to, but they just can't. Or they do it for a short period of time and then they stop. Yeah. Because you can't fight physiology. Yeah. So that's my mission, and that's why I think that these prescription medications and stuff have skyrocketed, because people are altering the chemistry in the brain to make these choices over here easier. Yep. Yep. But what you need to understand is that you actually have the power to affect those as well. And I learned more from studying functional medicine, right? Which you've got many different types of doctors, medical doctors, naturopathic doctors, chiropractors, a lot of different ones. And they're really making a huge thing come back, especially with the work of Mark Hyman and his work, that the medicine of choice in functional medicine is food. Yep. So what you eat changes how you feel. You don't believe me, have a donut and see what happens, right? And then the next thing, have an avocado and see what happens. So if you can do this, if you can mix the world of functional medicine, which is food, that's environmental, right? And then the medication that you may have to be on at the moment, and then you slowly begin to offset the two, like this, right?
Yep.
And eventually I've had it to where I've had numerous people be able to go off medication entirely, for the ones for depression and anxiety and also the ones for pain,
Yep.
when they got the body in balance from their environmental factors, of course, the food being the primary one, but they may not be able to. That's up to your prescribing medical physician. But maybe you're going to find out, hey, you know what? I used to have to take 100 milligrams of Zoloft. Now I only have to have 20.
Yep.
Well, that's a good thing because every medication has a side effect to it all the time, right? And you can't affect one system without throwing a shitstorm in another one.
Yep. Totally.
So that's why it's like the classic, why can't we just all get along type thing?
Right.
Because that's really what we need, not the polarization on that.
Piecing everything.
That's my viewpoint of the body now. And I know personally for me, I knew nutrition was important, but I came at nutrition more from a fitness standpoint.
Yep.
So I was eating to get ripped and cut for bodybuilding shows like I used to do. I was eating for athletic performance and recovery. But I've got a lot of people, because I'm in that world, that they look great on the outside, but they're horrific on the inside.
Yep.
They're not truly healthy.
Yeah.
Because we judge health by, well, what does your outside chassis of your car look like? Are you a Ferrari? But then I pop your hood and there ain't no engine in there. Yeah. So you have to have the both. But I'm not saying that's wrong, because if you're going to go into bodybuilding or sport or any athletes, there's a price to pay for working to be a champion and a winner, period. If you want to do that and you're willing to do that, just realize that's okay, but it comes with a price.
Yep.
But then there's the eating for overall general health. And you'll find that overall general health is a mixture of many different things. It's not just going to the gym and lifting weights. You also have to do your the emotional stuff, the rest and recovery day, the nutrition. Yep. Maybe I can go out here and go for an easy walk. Right. And also it's all those together that make for long-term success, because too much of anything, no matter what it is not going to be good for you in the long run. Yeah. Your body, your brain need variety. Your brain especially, it gets bored quick. And it needs variety, variation, and variability, called the 3 V's. It's hungry for something different. And if you give it something different, it eats that stuff up like you just left a Reese's peanut butter cup in the middle of nowhere, right? And nobody's looking. Right. It's fun, right?
Totally.
Because I love those freaking things, man.
Yep. Totally. Well, I want to segue more into movement stuff, because I think we will have a lot of people listening that maybe don't, functional movement is kind of what does that even mean? It's just kind of thrown out there. But I'd love for you to speak to the concept of, not just going to the gym to burn calories or to bench press 300 pounds, but why we should train our bodies functionally and what that means.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's kind of a buzzword, right? Mm-hmm. Like functional medicine. And to me, anything can be functional as long as it makes you better.
Yep.
Right? Like, I hate the term corrective exercise. I mean, what the hell does that mean anyway? Right. First of all, corrective implies that something's not right. Right. And everything, honestly, is right with your body. And you're like, well, it can't be right. I got pain. It's broken. I'm like, yeah, but you realize what your body is trying to do right now to fix itself? Yeah. So it compensates and it adapts. And you're like, well, when I go down, the person shifts to the right and they're supposed to be centered. And I'm like, yeah, but to your brain, that's the best strategy it has in the moment right now to make the best of what it's got to try to protect you. Because that's its job, is to protect you, period. And it doesn't have to make sense to you. Because here's the thing, your brain only lives right in the second you're in. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to squat down, to you, I'm like, why the hell would it go right if I know that I'm eventually supposed to go into the center? Because your brain doesn't think about repercussions later. Yeah. It's like, dude, he's squatting again, and this is all I got to do right now to make sure he doesn't screw himself up even more. Right? Yeah. So the first thing is to change how we think about correctional movement. And I hate to use the term if you're moving right or you're moving wrong. There is no right or wrong. It's just results, because it's context driven. sometimes you may actually have to have your back rounded when you lift something because it's the space that you're in.
Right.
Doesn't mean that it's wrong. But I get away from really like scripted, organized, OCD things of, are you in the right position when you do it? Because, yeah, it may be helpful for the minute you're doing it, but I know as soon as a person goes out into the real world, they're going to forget it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their brain won't remember it. It'll fall back into its old habits. So it needs to get comfortable moving in all different spectrums from this is ideal to these ends are absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
So it needs to feel comfortable with all of those.
Yeah.
So now I got more into natural human movement, which is how the body functions in basic positions on the ground. So I do most of my work on the ground, and I have people go back to the ground to begin to move because, one, it's where you started in the first place. Mm-hmm. So when you go back to the ground, your brain remembers it because you can't learn to walk until you learn how to move first.
Yep.
So everybody is a mover first. And then when you're on the ground, in my opinion, there's no wrong way to move on the ground.
Yep.
And when you're on the ground, a funny thing happens is that your body automatically relaxes and just feels less stress and more safe because it takes a lot less muscular effort to go on the ground than it does to stand on 2 feet, right? And if you want proof of that, when you had a rough day and you come in, you lay down on something, mm-hmm. What's the first thing that you do? You go, oh man, that's good. I can let go. Right. So if I go down to the ground, your body automatically has a less stress load on it, mm-hmm. right? And then the brain never forgets anything, ever. So you may not have been down on the ground on purpose in a long period of time because most people are not. They're either on the ground because they fell, mm-hmm. or they're on the ground because they had a really rough night out and they can't get back up. So otherwise, you're not down there.
Yeah.
But when you go back down, your brain goes, holy cow, dude. I mean, we were back here like, what, 50 years ago?
Right.
And like, I remember this. I had fun. I was a lot less stressed. I'm going to dust off some of these old things that we haven't done in a while. And then that lights up your brain too, right? Because your brain fires and wires together, they call that. So it revisits things that got cobwebs on it. Yep. So when you go down on the ground, you actually light stuff up because they now know that the brain can change itself through many different things, but specifically through movement. And so I get you down there first. And part of the reason that it makes you much better at what you do is because you don't do it now. I mean, it's just that simple. Like if you do something you don't normally do, you're going to be better.
Yeah.
So I usually tell people when I do movements, one, to do it on the ground, especially if you have pain, because it's a lot less likely that you'll have it down on the ground. But when you start to get more aggressive on movement on the ground, it can be really tough. Like people can't even support their own body weight on the ground when you start taking points of stabilization off. Like for instance, if I'm on the ground lying on my back, well, I'm very stable, right? Then if I go on all fours or I'm on my hands and my knees, I got 6 points of contact: my hands, my knees, and then my toes. Mm-hmm. But if I take off one hand and one knee, then I've only got 4 points of stabilization. And then it's much tougher. Yeah. Then if I actually have you physically move, then it's a lot more control. So it can be good 2 different ways. It can be a nice way to get you there, but I can also crush you on the ground because it's hard to move your body weight. In my opinion, it's much harder to move your body weight around something than it is to move something around your body. Mm-hmm. And so I'll start there. And then for standing movements, my number one corrective for standing is just to have you carry something heavy from point A to point B. Like they call it a farmer's walk or a loaded carry. Basically, when you hold something heavy in both of your hands when you start, because you have better weight distribution that way. Pick it up. And then walk from A to B and then B to A and then put it back down. So if you can't bend over and pick it up because it's painful, well, one, you probably shouldn't be doing the movement. But 2, all you do is put the weight up higher towards the stance position and grab it that way, right? So a lot of times in a gym, you got the dumbbell racks.
Right.
I'll have people just grab a couple of dumbbells from the rack there, so you don't have to bend down on the floor and pick it up, and then just walk with it, because that's functional. I mean, that's like real world stuff. I may have to pick up my suitcase. I may have to pick up my kid. I may have to shovel snow. And then the human body is designed that way. For us, our movement was predicated on what they call resource allocation, where I actually had to get my food, get my supplies, go find it, go kill it, go cut it, go dig it, and bring it from here back to there.
Right.
And then that's up, down, twist, rotate, high, low, left, right. That's everything, plus carrying it under load. So if you want to make the biggest change in your overall physique from a performance standpoint, assuming you don't have pain, it's a loaded carry. Mm-hmm. It'll change your body like freakishly fast. Then you're going to say like, what? That's crazy. Right. Yeah, I know. But that's the beautiful thing about it, right? Yeah. And part of the movement thing for people is also just make it fun. If you don't have fun moving, you ain't going to move for very long. Mm-hmm. That's why people don't stay with corrective exercises and rehab, because they suck. Who the hell wants to do those? Yeah. That's boring and no fun and blah, blah, blah. It's on the sheet. I got to do the same one in the same order all the time. So, maybe you're forced to do it that way, but maybe you can do this. Maybe what I can do is close my eyes and I'll just put my finger down. I'm going to do that one first. Right. Right. Or what I'll do is I usually do this thing on the carpet. Now I'm going to do it outside on the grass. Yeah. Or now I'm going to do it on the hardwood floor. Or now I'm going to do it. I'm going to make the room. I'm going to do it in a room that's 50 degrees. Next time I'll do it in a room that's 90 degrees. Mm-hmm. So what'll happen is that it's not the same exercise because you're changing the environmental input into your body. Yeah. So it actually is completely different. So there's many different ways that you can change things up for your brain in relationship to movement and relationship to exercise. So the idea is to have fun and make it play, because one of my favorite taglines is there's no wrong way to play. Mm-hmm. You just play, you just move. You're not worried about anything except being in the moment, right? Yep. Just moving. Yeah, I mean, there's a novel idea, right?
Right, doesn't need to be so...
I put up on a post once, I put up, move more. Yep. Right? Because I tell people, move more of yourself more often. Yep. But in the world of healthcare, I mean, we get OCD, and then somebody puts a question mark. What about move better? Question mark. What about, movement quality? Yep. I'm like, dude, just pull the freaking trigger. Just start going. Right. And worry about that stuff later. Yep. Because I don't even really look at quality, honestly, when I have people do playful type of movement. So let me give you an example. Right? So if I have time. Yep. So I can give somebody and say, okay, I want you to get down on the ground, and you're going to be on your hands and your knees, and then I'm going to position your pelvis so you're nice and straight on your back, and then maybe I'm going to put something on your lower back that you're going to try to keep balanced, and then I'm going to have you reach your left arm out and then your right leg back, and you try to balance it, right? So, well, first of all, that's like a lot of neurotic pressure going on yourself. I'm not saying it's not valid. Yep. I'm not saying it doesn't work. Because as we said before, everything works for somebody for a little while. Right. But what I do instead is I get the person standing up, and then I looked at the research based on how the body reacts to cueing. Cueing is where I'm trying to teach you something based on input. Yep. So there's internal cueing and external cueing. Internal cueing is kind of like when I'm trying to tell you to, move your arm out and keep it this way and tuck your pelvis under. All those things are more like internal cueing. External cueing is stuff that comes from the outside in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand you up, and then I'm going to have a big stick. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to say to you, okay, see this stick? Hey, one, I'm not going to beat you with it. Okay. Two, all I want you to do is I'm going to move the stick coming closer to your body. Yep. And then I want you to just not let the stick hit you, but you have to, and I'll give things, I'll say you got to keep your right foot where it is. You can move everything else. Right. Then I'll say you can only move 6 inches any direction. And then I'm going to come at you different ways, and I'm going to say only move when you have to.
Right.
I'm going to come here, and then what's going to happen is that if I'm coming close to your head, you're probably going to move away, or you're going to squat down, or you're going to do this, and then I'm going to come along the side, and then you're going to shift this way, and then I'm going to come down to your leg, and then you're going to lift your knee and move your leg so I don't hit you this way, and then you're going to step over it. And what happens is that what are you paying attention to in that moment? The stick.
Yep. You're moving your body.
You're not paying attention to how you're moving, and you're not paying attention to, well, here's what I'm trying to say. I'm not paying attention to, am I moving right? Mm-hmm. Because in real life, trust me, you ain't going to think about anything when you move. You're just going to move.
Right.
But let's say somebody has back pain, and every time they bend forward into flexion, their back hurts, or i.e. they expect their back to hurt. That's a key word. And then I'm like, okay, I want you to try to bend forward and touch your toes. They're like, oh, man, this is going to hurt. Right? Well, it's probably going to hurt.
Yep.
But what I've noticed countless times is when I'm doing the stick and then I come from behind or forward, the person actually bends forward and they're moving around like this, stuff like that. And then afterwards I put the stick down and I go, how's your back?
Yeah.
What? Didn't even hurt. Right?
Yeah.
Because they weren't thinking about the back. I mean, that's that mind-body connection where you just got to, sometimes you just got to get out of your own damn way.
Yep.
Right? That's why it's a beautiful form of rehabilitation. And there's so many different ways that you can explore with that. And what I'm contending is this, is that type of thing is much more empowering to that person, but because they're probably going to have a hell of a good time too. They're going to be like, I wanted to see this guy, and he did some crazy stuff I never seen before. I mean, he was moving around with the stick, and you ain't going to talk about anybody else when you leave the office and they had you do stuff on the ground with quadruped. Who the hell is going to talk about that? Right? And then the person is like, that was kind of fun, but they realize, here's the thing, they realize I can move without pain.
Yes.
So it becomes really, really empowering. And here's the novel idea. You can have your family member at home do it with you. Yep. That's a great thing to do with your kids. It's a great thing to do with your spouse, right? And one of my favorite rehab tools in the world in regards to movement is to go on Amazon and buy the old school game from the 60s or maybe even before that called Twister.
Yep.
All you do is just put your hands on your feet wherever that thing lands, and that's what you start to do.
Totally. Full body, functional movement.
Full body, functional movement, and it's probably really fun at the same time.
I love it. That's awesome. Okay, I have 2 more questions if you have time.
Yeah.
Okay. So I really want to know, because I've seen you do some stuff with muscle testing.
Yeah.
I'd love to know how you came across that, because my background is applied kinesiology. So I love that you do that and integrate it into functional movement, like rack tape that whole world, because a lot of people have this weird view on muscle testing, right? And how you utilize it as a tool.
It's a great question. Well, I don't know why people look at muscle testing as some weird thing, because the benchmark of muscle testing in physical therapy is the Kendall and Kendall muscle test system. Mm-hmm. They're just testing it for a strength scale, like from 0 to 5, which means if you look at physical therapy books or you look at really good quality books on evaluation of the peripheral nervous system, they show you muscle testing so you can see if there's a disconnect in a nerve or the communication. Yep. So those are positions that are in medicine, right? I mean, you push on them and you crank on them. The difference is a couple of things. One is kind of really what we're looking for from the test, and then how hard we choose to push on somebody. Because they say muscle testing is so subjective, right? But if honestly, most of what you see in anything could be subjective,
right?
But it's like anything else. It's also an art to it, right? Be able to see. So I do all forms of muscle testing. I don't just do one. So I have AK for sure, but I do a lot of harder type testing, and I do positional type testing
Yeah.
because it shows me a lot. One, I'm looking for the overall strength of a muscle, and I don't even like to call it muscle testing anymore because you know how words matter, and then you have this preconceived notion
Yep. Yep.
or something,
Yep.
right? I sometimes I'll either call it universe testing or I'll call it force testing because I jokingly say, you know, the universe has one job in my opinion, and that's to kick your ass.
Right.
And that's putting outside force on you,
Sure.
which is gravity.
Sure.
Gravity's always pushing down on you. Your job is to be able to control outside force.
Yep.
If you cannot control outside force, that's when you get musculoskeletal pain.
Yep.
So all I do is to say, I'm the outside force. I am Universe Perry, and I'm coming to get you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in a position, and I do different ones where I'm going to say, don't let me move you no matter what. And that's what I want to see, how hard you brace, what you do, whether you hold your breath, what you choose to do to hold yourself outside there. And then that's a high threat response. And then I lower it down to varying degrees where I say, okay, I want you to initiate the movement towards me first, and then you just react to what I do, right? So they go first, and if they go really hard, then I'm like, just chill, man. You don't have to go that hard.
Right.
Then I'll go easy, and then I just see what their initial reaction is, and then I'll start to go harder in different ways, and they know we match it like a seesaw type game, right? And then I get into more outside things or repetitive stuff where I'm going to push you kind of a lot really, really hard. It's called vibration oscillation or perturbation is the word. Yep. And I'm looking to see how resilient your system is. So I honestly don't look at a strength scale from 0 to 5. I look at your power output, but I look at where you are in all these different spectrums. But I also really don't pay so much of attention to an individual muscle in and of itself. I'm just kind of looking at the pattern that's on. Right. So say you're bringing your arm forward like this, and people say, I'm testing your anterior deltoid. I'm like, well, you know, I'm testing a lot of stuff, but I'm looking for your body's ability to raise its arm up. Yep. And whether you like it or not. Right. And if you don't like it, what I know is that your body's got to get something from somewhere else if it doesn't like that. Yep. And then if it's super, super strong, then I know, but dude, you really like that from here. Yep. So I think that people who don't do muscle testing are really missing a huge part of input from the system. And, you know, when people say it's subjective, I'm like, that's pretty funny, man, because pain is subjective. Right. There's no objectivity to pain whatsoever. Right. Totally. Giving me this scale of 1 to 10, that doesn't tell me squat. Right. Right. Because I got a Navy SEAL over here who's got his leg hanging off, and he says, it's just a flesh wound. It's like a tooth. Right. And I got a guy who works in an office pushing pencils, and he gets paper cut, and he's sitting in the corner sucking his thumb, calling for his mother. Yeah. So that's a 10, man. Totally. And where does that sit? Right. So what happens is that you take all of these things. I do a muscle test, I do a history, I do palpation, I do orthopedic tests, I do range of motion, I do all these things to help give me a picture. But in all honesty, I mean, how your body is able to control an outside force tells me so much about that. Yep. And then it's also very enlightening for a patient. Absolutely. When they feel the difference. Because they're like, wow, that was really easy on the left side and then right side. And, of course, you know what their first question is, right? Were you pushing the same on that side as you were doing on the other side? Gotta be a trick, man. You're like the mentalist at that point, right? Totally. Around. Totally. I love it when I have like a huge, like a 6'5" patient, because then I'm like, there's no way I could push your quad down, dude. Exactly. I'm not that strong. Yeah. I know. Yeah. It's all those things just paint a story. Yep. They paint a picture, right? Yeah. And I firmly believe that you should take little pieces of many different styles, many different techniques, and I'm very honest with people in the beginning when I work with them as a patient or when I teach them. I'm like, listen, my goal is one thing, that we're better at the end than where we started.
Mm-hmm.
If I get you better at the end than where we started, that's good.
Yeah.
Now, you might not agree with what I'm doing to get you there,
Yeah.
but if I get the results, that's what I want. But I'm also man enough to say that if I do something to you here and then you're not better at the end,
Mm-hmm.
well, first of all, that doesn't make me a bad person. What it does is it actually makes me much better, because then I got to go deep. Then I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. So for both of us, though, that means maybe I got to change my approach of what I initially thought your body was trying to tell me. And then I got to go, well, one, maybe what aren't you telling me?
Yeah.
Or two, what are you maybe not doing when you leave here that you're supposed to be doing? Or what are you doing that you're not supposed to be doing when you leave here? Sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a mixture of both. But it's really important when people have pain to understand that when you go into a journey of healing from chronic pain, you're probably going to get worse before you get better. And that's because the body has to go through a natural detoxification healing process and readaptation to movement patterns. So a lot of people say, I had pain. I never had pain over here, and I got pain over here. You gave me this, and now I got that. Yeah. And the first thing you got to do is say, awesome. Totally. That's great. That's what we want, man. We're getting a change in there. How you respond to that question is really important. Yeah. Because if you're like, ooh, really? Like, I mean, then all the person's like, what? Right? Freak. Right? And they're first of all, they're scared if anything changes, because people get married to their diagnosis. They become a disc herniation. Yep. And they're so used to pain in one place that, God forbid, you give them pain in another place. Yeah. Then they freak out. But that's what change is. Yeah. And so that's also too why you're dealing with an emotional component, because that's going to be very emotional for people when they get a change. Yep. And sadly, I've seen it, because you would think that it just makes logical sense that if I have somebody in pain, that they don't want to be in pain. But I've seen people that stay in pain because their life revolves around it.
Yeah, it's their identity.
And then maybe they get the attention that they don't usually get without it. Or maybe there's an underlying fear of, well, what do I do when this thing is not part of me? And we think that's batshit crazy, but it's not. Yep. Right? It's like, I read something once by Anthony Robbins, and he goes, maybe you're not successful because you fear success. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's nuts when I first saw it. Right. But then I think it's not so much that I fear failure. I don't mind failing, but it's like, do you realize what it takes to get to success, the work and the effort and all the sacrifices that you may have to make? Yep. And are you willing to go through that? And if you step back and you realistically think about it like that, I was like, that's a completely different way of looking at it. Mm-hmm. Totally. Right? And it's the same thing with pain. Like, what are you fearful of when the pain goes away? Yep. Totally. What are you talking about? That's where you sit down and you break out your piece of paper. And you have column A, you have column B. And then you really have to, that's a good, like, introspective, quiet moment to have in between your silence and your breathing, right? Totally. Absolutely. Afterwards, right? So I think the takeaway is that there's much more to health. There's much more to vitality. There's much more to managing pain, because there's no cure for pain. That implies that you're never going to get it again. It's only management, which means you have to do your part to manage that stuff doesn't come back. Hey, my job. It's your job. Yep. And that aspect is really, really important, and that's something that I think that with medicine, we're both, in my opinion, trying to strive to do.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, last question. I want to know, what is your morning routine?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll walk my talk, for sure. So I talk about the power of movement and hydration and quiet time. So I kind of like to be up in the morning, kind of like a vampire, because I like to get to work when other people are still sleeping. And for many years I couldn't, because I was so exhausted, and I would sleep for 12 hours and still be tired. Right. That's because of the the exhaustion and the inflammation and the stress response. So I wake up in the morning and I sit up and I drink one bottle of water right away that has my prebiotic, probiotic ready to mix in. So I start to get my hydration. Then I stand up and I do my quick lymphatic release protocol where I show people how to release specific tight, restricted points on their body that can cause inflammation and pain. And then I do get up and down movement where I just go down to the ground and back up again a couple different ways, right? Just like 2 times to get blood going. And then from there I go out, and then I have my cup of coffee. I have coffee after that. Then I sit down, and then I start to do my morning writing or looking at my list of what I put down I needed to do the day before. And then by that time, my kid gets up for school, and then I got to kind of get back to it. But I think how you start that day is really, really important. I used to wake up and hit the snooze button, and then that's awful for you. I mean, you should just get up. You're worse off if you hit the snooze button. I would sit up, and then first thing I'd look at is my damn phone, and to start right then and there and looking at emails and looking at messages, and then I'd go and make the coffee and just sit down and start. And all those small little things make a big difference. And I'll talk about LTAs. I call them LTAs. They're little tiny action steps where everything seems so daunting and it's going to take you forever to get there. So you just start off easy. Because if you start off big, you'll be proud of yourself for like 2 days, then you'll quit. Just wake up and drink a glass of water, right? Or usually best to have it lukewarm room temperature because cold water is already a stress on your system. And I drink a bottle of water because what I find with people, especially in chronic pain, is that they are chronically dehydrated. And I recommend about 3 liters of water a day for men and about 2 to 2.5 for women. And most people don't get anywhere near that. I got people that say, I drink a lot of water. I'm like, how much is a lot? 2 glasses. There's no way you're going to physically get well when you're dehydrated. That ain't happening. I don't care what you do. That's really, really important. So just that, if it can start with that, and then you'll start to feel better, and then of course add some more during the day. But that's a win, right? That's a win right there. So that's kind of my morning routine. Oh, and then I also do all of my training in the morning. So I have a home gym here. So I always get up and I do after my coffee and my son goes off to school. I walk on the treadmill, and I love to do that. Or I'll do outside walking, and then I come in and do my martial arts and kung fu. I'll do a lot of tai chi and kung fu. And then I'll do my resistance training and ground-based training. So I move every single day. Every single day. And then from there, then I can go off into the office when I need to see some patients or clients and stuff like that. So
totally. I love it. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate it. I'd love for you to share with us, where can the listeners find you on social media, on your website? How can they get in touch?
That's really simple. So you can go to stopchasingpain.com, and that's a central hub for everything. So that'll link you off to all of my social media platforms and my membership site. I have an exclusive online membership where I share little creamy filling stuff that I don't share with and of course where my workshops are, and I have several videos that I have available for purchase that people can get, and I got a new one coming this month, and you can get direct access to them there. And then that's probably the best way. And actually I've been in the arena for a long time. So if you type in Stop Chasing Pain or even my name, you'll see a lot of my past work from articles that I've written and stuff that I've done. And it'll be an interesting journey for you because, things that I was probably teaching 10 years ago are very different than what I'm teaching now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one, it changes a person, and two, it changes based on what the research is for the day, because that could change on a dime.
Yep.
But it's really interesting to look back and see the dynamics of what's changing. And I think what's important is when you get out into the world and you want to share your message, you start to understand a little bit more about yourself, and you embrace your own personality and your own strengths. And then through the later part of work, you can see how somebody changes in a way.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It's almost like when you find your path or you find your purpose.
Yep.
On that one. And you only find that through getting your ass kicked, honestly. And so you'll be able to follow the journey of my ass kicking as you go along.
Yep.
And then, we were talking before, I'll work up a coupon for the you guys that they can get like a code and get a percentage off some of my videos if they want to do them. And then once you go to purchase the video, you can get it right there. And all my videos are for immediate download and stream, so you don't have to worry about any stuff getting shipped to you or anything. But we'll get something for your listeners on that.
Perfect. All right, guys. So read the notes, the show notes for Dr. Perry's interview to find out more information about his coupon code, and check out his stuff. It's awesome. It'll blow your mind and open up a totally different way of looking at human movement.
Well, thank you. Yeah, blowing up some brains and minds, that's a pretty good thing. Yeah. Well, thank you. I had a lot of fun, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Totally. Thank you.